Okay, here we are at one of my favorite flying fields. Lovely little blue flowers all over the place. The grass is about knee high, so it's getting a little out of control, but it's a great evening to fly. And we are going to take a ride here in the SonicModell Binary. This is probably about my fifth or sixth flight with this plane. I had a couple of good flights to begin with, and then I had a bad crash, which necessitated quite a bit of repair. Nothing really seriously damaged. It's a pretty tough plane, but a lot of little things, and I wanted to make a few tweaks and improvements as well. So this was just a really nice evening. The wind was pretty calm, and my plan on this battery is to go out and fly out over some of the green hills that are off to the west. So to get out there, we fly over some subdivisions. You can see it's approaching sunset. The lights are starting to come on down below. I'm recording this with the RunCam Hybrid 4K. I am shooting this in 4K, although I don't know if that will actually end up being the final footage that you are seeing on YouTube. I may downsample it to 2.7K or add some stabilization. You may notice the plane banking slightly to the left. It has been wanting to turn to the right since I first set it up. At first I was just running the same throttle setting on both motors, but now I have added some differential thrust that is tied to the rudder. So it's relatively easy to keep the plane tracking now, but it still wants to, seems to want to turn to the right, even though there's really no aerodynamic reason that I can find for it to be doing that. I did a bunch of testing and tried checking the motors, and everything seems fine there. So I haven't been able to figure out really just how to finally tune that out yet. So it's a little bit annoying, but the plane is actually flying really good now, and it was time to go get some footage. With that said, if you have any ideas on what might be going on, I'm all ears, so put a comment down in the comments and let me know what you think. Get out of town, this is just some of my favorite scenery to fly over. I never get tired of looking at it. There's just some beautiful farmland, some nice houses, and one really spectacular house that's being built now. Very curious to see who might own that. We will fly over that a little bit later in the flight, but for now, just enjoy the sunset and the hills. You can see that big house there off to the left. We're not going to get a very close look at it right now because we're going to turn to the north, but we'll be flying back over it later. This is my first twin motor plane, and it's also running 3-blade props, which are a part of the stock power kit that comes with this plane. And so it turned out that tuning out the vibrations out of the motors and the props was pretty tricky. I also had a lot of vibration just from the camera itself. I hadn't really set it up too tightly, and so in the wind combined with the motor vibration, the first footage that I got from this plane was really just unusable. So I did a little bit of DIY, got some foam earplugs of all things, and hot glued those into place, kind of adding some vibration damping to the camera, and it's worked really well. This flight, it's finally some what I would consider decent footage. So I'm just really happy with the way this one turned out. So I'm using this little pan tilt system that Keith Luneau, also known as Bonafide Pirate on YouTube, developed. It's a real simple little system, just uses a couple of servos. It's got a 180-degree servo on the base, and then just a standard 9-gram servo on the top. And with a little bit of vibration damping that I added, it works really well. It doesn't let me turn all the way back around to look over the tail. That would require a 360-degree servo. And I have one of those, but it's big and it's bulky, and I just really liked the small, compact design that Keith had, so that's what ended up on the front of this one. It was Bonafide Pirate's videos with his SonicModell Binary that prompted me to get one of these planes for myself. I really liked the flight dynamics, and it's got good range. It's not super efficient, but it's not bad. Having 2 motors also gives you the possibility of getting it home if you do have a motor failure. And it's got tons of room inside for batteries and flight control gear. Just seemed like a really fun, good, semi-long range FPV plane. So now that I've kind of got all the details sorted, I'm really happy with the way it's working. On top of the wing, you see some little kind of pyramid-shaped protrusions there, and those are vortex generators. What they do is they create vortices and keep the airflow smooth over the top of the wing and increase lift at low speeds. I had heard, and since found out that it's true, that the Binary is a little bit prone to tip stalling when it is maneuvering at low speed. So I decided to add the vortex generators right off the bat to help combat that a little bit. I still did have a bad tip stall crash, but I've learned a couple of things since then. One of the most important things is that the Binary will slow down actually really well if it's going in a straight line. What it's not good at is maneuvering when going slow. So you want to keep the throttle up when you're maneuvering, and when the difference between the lowest maneuvering speed and the lowest speed you can fly in a straight line is quite a big difference in this plane. So you want to keep your speed up anytime that you are not wings level. And using the flaps helps too. I've learned to use the flaps on the kind of the low setting, not extreme deployment, but just a little bit of flaps on takeoff and landing do help to stabilize the plane and will minimize some of those chances of a tip stall. Another thing that I want to do is find the microphone on the RunCam Hybrid 4K and just put a little piece of tape or something over it to reduce the wind noise a little bit and just allow the sound of the motors themselves to come through. But I looked all over and I cannot find, like usually there's a little hole or something where the microphone is placed on these split type cameras, and I can't find it. So for now, we're just dealing with the wind noise. This was about as far as I made it out on this flight. It's over 3 miles, but it's not quite 4 miles. I'd have to look. I haven't really tested the range of this plane yet, but at this distance I had perfect video and still good control with the Crossfire system. So it just seemed like it would be a prudent place to turn around and start making a loop back around toward the south side of town. Right off the nose now, you can see the sprawling GM plant and some of the other industrial facilities that are nearby there. Because of the coronavirus pandemic, the plant has been shut down for a while, and it's going to be reopening soon, which is good news for our community. A lot of people work there that live in this area. The largest employer, in fact. Definitely approaching sunset now. You can see some of the lights starting to come on out over the town. It's very pretty this time of day around here. So now off the nose you can see the big house, as I'm calling it, and they're still doing construction on it. You can see there's some ground that they've still flattened out. I don't know what's going to be there, but it's a really palatial place. And I'm playing around with the camera here. So they've got the big gate out front and then a long drive up to the top of the hill. You can't see the house at all from the road. You only would know it's here by flying over it. So we get a particularly good view. And as I'm doing this, I'm also playing with the throttle a little bit because the plane is running under auto throttle. And I bring it down below where it needs to be kept at a minimum, and the props actually stop turning for a couple of seconds here. So, and then that causes the plane to kind of yaw around. So apologies for the shaky footage, but you can still get a good look at this place. It's absolutely huge. So one really interesting feature is this pool that they have out back. You can see there are some what I think are artificial palm trees scattered around in kind of a tiki hut sort of a thing. It looks like it will really be a fun place to hang out in the summer. Don't know if they'll ever invite me there, but I think I would go if I was invited. Okay, the show's over. Time to get back to the serious business of flying the airplane. Once again, I just don't get tired of seeing these hills. They're beautiful in the summer. They're especially beautiful in the fall when all the leaves start turning. The middle of January, not quite so pretty, but still nice. There are a lot of features in this area that you just can't see from the ground. Some of these fields that are actually on top of the hills here, that you would never even know that they were there unless you were able to fly over them. Well, this concludes the scenic portion of our flight. Now it's time to go back to civilization, start flying over some of the subdivisions. So now you can look down and see if you can spot some cars or kids riding their bikes or whatever. The lovely Walmart and Lowe's are right off the nose there. So all the comforts of home around here. One thing I discovered with this lithium-ion battery was that once it starts to drain down below around 12 volts, it gets really sluggish with this plane. So that was really one of the main reasons for my crash. I thought that I had enough throttle going. I had 50-60% throttle. But what happens is the plane just starts voltage sagging so badly that full throttle is almost no different than 1/3 throttle. Oh, and if you look down, you can also see those beautiful flowers that are just everywhere, turning that whole field blue. But anyways, I learned my lesson the hard way, but now I'm being very careful to keep the wings as level as I can, turn mostly with the rudder, and just line up for an approach, giving it lots of throttle, and actually come down quite steeply. I think it's another thing that I figured out is this plane will slow down pretty well. You want to just keep the wings level and just let it drop down. You'll see I come in pretty quickly and just let the plane sink. I just missed my receiver. That was close. I was watching the plane. I was not looking at the ground, and I think I came within about a foot of hitting my receiver. So, whew. Like they say, it's better to be lucky than good. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this flight. We'll see you next time.